Thanks, Gokul, Parag, and Jollydeep for joining us. Parag, let me start with where Gokul ended on bringing intelligence to the edge. You've been working quite a bit on new technology and new innovation. So could you maybe explain to the audience, what is D2M? How do you see D2M as an enabler for bringing AI to the edge to various mobile devices?
Most often when we talk about AI, right, we tend to talk about applications, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. And I think Lalitesh said that we need compute, which is 1/50th of the cost of what is done today. Otherwise, I think if we continue on the path that we are, there will be global heating, not just warming. Just to train models for some of the applications that we do. And I think the digital, the backbone of all the digitized economy is hardware. And unfortunately, we've not spent enough time in the country, trying to focus on that problem. So some of the issues that we are looking at is, how do we, one of the population scale applications that we're looking at is direct to mobile, is the ability to deliver large amounts of broadcast bits to the edge without probably having to pay for a hand and a leg even at the Indian prices, the Indian telecom prices. So as you start to get all these models come up, you have to be able to deliver these models to the edge, like Gokul talked about, probably every day or every other day. In fact, cars today, EV cars today have models updated practically every second day, and especially for ADAS in the Western world. But even in India, we're going to have that problem. So that's one of the things. And the other interesting application is we have about 250 to 300 million feature phones that are probably off grid, 2G feature phones. And how do we get these guys to access all the cool applications that everybody's talking about? And some of the applications that the earlier panel mentioned, I have to get into these bottom of the pyramid devices. We need to have I would say, $1 AI or even lower. And that's where, we need to build from our end. We have been building architectures, we've been building hardware that can actually address these problems. To be able to get down, those $20,000 chips to probably about $1 for certain use cases.
So Gokul, building on what Parag just now talked about on D2M and building hardware, taking AI to the edge, making it affordable, targeting that wide bottom of the pyramid. So what is Intel's perspective on this? What have you been working on to make this a reality? How are you going to make AI affordable and inclusive for all Indians?
So there are multiple aspects to delivering AI. Clearly, starts at the data center if you're doing training, and then there is an aspect of network, and then the edge, and then the consumer devices. With respect to what Intel's doing, clearly we are trying to make sure that we have a roadmap of products that is such that it can cater to all of these aspects of how AI can be delivered. More importantly, on the edge for inferencing, there is anywhere from 15, 20 watt part to all the way up to 100 plus watts that can be put there as a compute wattage, where you can run bunch of fine-tuned models for inferencing, and in some cases even without the network or the connectivity, all localized. And we've been able to do that with our AI PC versions. We're also in the space where some of these compute need not necessarily come as a personal computing or a laptop form factor, and it can be stacked together to be able to run these models. The last part that I do want to call out is we don't look at the size of the model as the only way to architect our compute solution, but look at problem statements that actually needs the right kind of compute. And then the model evolution is something, as you've seen from 3-4 years ago, what could have been done only with several $billion, billion parameter models are now being done with much smaller one. So if you start building only for that category of model size, then you're stuck at the evolution where as things get better and improved and efficient, you don't have a compute that fits it. So our goal has been to be able to address all of these. Primarily from an India standpoint, I think edge inferencing and getting PCs to be able to deliver a lot of that across all of these segments that I talked about has been a key focus. Education has been one of those that we have really doubling down in terms of seeing where we can bring more personalized, adaptive education capabilities onto our laptops that makes the device a lot more valuable for the students from not only their high school or middle school days, but all the way up to what they can do, in higher education as well.
So Jollydeep, you operate at the other end of the spectrum, right? From a cloud provider standpoint, and one of the big concerns today in India is, how do we build the necessary infrastructure to be able to deploy these AI models? And there's a huge gap there. What are you seeing from your organization's perspective? What potential innovations are you seeing? How do you see India building its own sovereign AI infrastructure?
From our perspective, our role is simple. It's definitely about how is it that we can build an infrastructure company that can solve these problems for most of our enterprise customers, for the citizens as such. So we're looking at how we can build sovereignty as one of our it's one of our key principles underlying right from what we've done in our cloud journey in about 13 years now and what we are doing today in AI. It's important that we place sovereignty very deeply into uh, building or in the minds of our product managers. So right from looking at whether we're able to bring the data layer. So that's, I think, very commonly spoken about when we relate to sovereignty. That how is data being protected? How is it resident to India? Is it local? We have to look at also the aspect of how the Indian data laws will be applicable to this Indian data. The second aspect is about technologies. What kind of technologies you're using that will also fortify the sovereign layer. So if you bring any weak link into this entire chain of the stack that you're creating, you are making yourself more vulnerable of breaking the sovereignty principle. So from technology point of view, in terms of which kind of partners we work with, what technologies we adopt, we're cognizant while we're making that decision as to what are the right relationships that we need to do, so that the infrastructure layer, the technology layer also can also adhere to the sovereignty principle. The third very important aspect is about the operation. So, if you have the technology right in place, you're also making all the measures and initiatives to ensure data is protected. But if at operation layer you're going to be weak, you're still going to be dependent on factors outside which are not in your jurisdiction. It's also going to weaken the sovereignty layer. So for us, that is also very important that we train our staff, our engineers, to ensure that we are able to run businesses as usual for our customers. And even if there are any geopolitical stress or there are any other reasons that isolate us from being able to run businesses, will the technical team be able to take over and run? So making these principles as the underlying core of what we do for our products, we've been able to work on a lot of AI initiatives which are more real outcome based. What we see is, and I think most of us resonate here, is that what we're currently doing in AI and what actually is being thrown at us from the global powers that currently control it is more of gimmicks, right? You are engaging the consumers to create images and burning a lot of resources. But can we use AI to make effectiveness or real outcomes that can help and enrich the lives of people, citizens of India? So there can be citizen use cases that can be deployed. Very interestingly, we're working with them. We've also announced it in press around September or so. Is that we're working with a company called ITQ. This is an official partner of Travelport, where we're creating something which is going to redefine travel. So how does an Indian context to travel work? What are the kinds of preferences Indian citizens have over traveling. Here we have a lot of family values. So there are people who travel with parents who are senior citizens. You have people who travel with kids. Some are solo travelers. Are they safe places? So there are a whole lot of things which are going in determining how you will tackle a problem which seems very mundane, like just travel, but can you enrich that aspect with use of AI and create something very you can say while it becomes very convenient, can we also have fantasies around it? So that's
Great. So Parag, let me come to you now that we've heard what it takes to build sovereign infrastructure, and a topic that's very close to your heart is building an Indian chip. Uh, do you think India can build its own AI chips, and will that become a fundamental enabler of infrastructure sovereignty for India?
Yeah, of course. I think most of Gokul's teams is based in India, right? They're Indians, so. So ask him. Sorry, Gokul. Yeah, so it's just that we have the leadership lacking, and the Bangalore mafia, I like to call it Bangalore digital mafia. They tend to put hardware as an afterthought, right? We just want to build applications and stuff like that. So it is, like she said, it's extremely strategic to have to have hardware and chips not as an afterthought, right? But as a mainstay of any digitized, any digitized application. And in fact, luckily now, the last few years, suddenly people have realized also post-COVID, and they have discovered NVIDIA now. So, $1 trillion and $4 trillion valuation. So people are going away from the Kirana stores, e-Kirana store. Somebody said Kirana store, right? He said Kirana store. Going away from the e-Kirana store model to building these applications. So, of course we can, and we will, we have to. And if we don't, then we'll have kill switches with, with everybody else in the world. And and we saw that in Ops Sindoor, right, to an extent. How sovereignty helps in some of these technologies.
So if you look at the two use cases that you talked about, right? One, at the one end of the spectrum is low cost going on to mobile devices. At the other end of the spectrum, data centers, huge compute power and so on. Talk a little bit about what will it take, what kind of innovations need to emerge out of India to address both these.
I think, while people look at very fancy stuff, it's basic arithmetic. If you can, most of the power that's been burnt doing these applications you talked about is multiplying zeros with zeros. It's as simple as that, right? So, if you look at the compute trajectory, typically there is this wave, right? You start off from custom architectures, you go to general purpose architectures, and then again go to custom architectures. And when you go from general purpose architectures to custom architectures, there's a fancy name for it. It's domain specific architectures. So I think domain specific, architectures and data paths, especially for that. Data path is a fancy name for the arithmetic that has been done that help you do that. So those are the two key things, and most of these models, and there's a lot of research going on right now, they are very sparse. So again, that results in multiplying zeros with zeros a billion times. So that's a challenge. Those are very simple things that we should look at, and unfortunately, there's a prices law, right, which says that there is a square root of the number of employees that actually work in a company. That actually do work in a company, right? I have another law which says there is only 10th root of the entire industry that actually does any original work. Everybody follows that. So if you start from general principles, like for example, ParagGen is looking at it, and if we embed ourselves in, start building architectures that accelerate that, I think we can do it. We definitely can do it.
So Gokul, let me come to you. If you look at India's trajectory with new technologies, it is not the same linear progression like in other parts of the world. We have occasionally leapfrog. Great examples are UPI is one great example where we completely skipped the credit card era and went to digital payments. Similarly, with mobile devices, we completely skipped the broadband landline era, and then brought high-speed internet directly to people's mobile phones. is D2M with the combination of AI a potential leapfrog? Which are the other sectors that you see from an India standpoint where we can potentially leapfrog?
So specifically D2M, I think is a unique opportunity for India, and I think it also probably will apply for many other countries beyond India, because you found another way to be able to send data, particularly where the main channel, which is through the cellular operators, is always has a huge network traffic, and you end up having the challenges of how much bandwidth is there for you to push, and now you found an alternate. And I think that's really a very big breakthrough in my mind, and particularly when you apply it for certain segments and certain population. So I strongly believe education can use D2M really well, because you take anybody that if you have kids and they're starting to learn and they search and they want to learn a topic, half an hour later they probably open 15 more tabs and they've got 20 more YouTubes running on it, but how much they got out of it without distraction and uninterrupted is very less. And what D2M does is be able to give you that same experience without distraction. Obviously, you can't prevent the child from going into another browser and doing other things, but streaming that, and if you can add with the D2M as a fundamental technology and add more personalization, vernacular, and other elements that AI can bring to education, it's I think is a true winner, and I think it's pretty powerful in that sense. In terms of what other things that we can leapfrog, I think from an India context, we have given compute to 1 billion people, which is a phone. Um, but but we need to also look at where can technology really improve, enrich the life of people. What does enrich of life of people? Could be not could be is education, health, food, which is agriculture, and livelihood. So if we can find a way to give the population compute capability and application capability that's tailored for them, then you have ways to leapfrog in all of these.
So one of the findings of this report was that students need affordable laptops to be able to get the most out of AI. Any ask that you have of the government, be it at the central level or state levels, what will it take to diffuse AI, diffuse these compute devices into the student population?
Well, I think our compute to student ratio is 100 students to one laptop or one compute device. So there is a message right there on what we can do for, right to compute is probably one that you can do for every student.
Interesting, right to compute.
Yeah.
So Parag, anything you want to add from mobile devices, low cost mobile devices, feature phones?
Yeah, I think the feature phones were provided to us by the Chinese, right? At that price point. So I think we need to take over that and ensure that we provide that to our guys. I think transliteration and there are a lot of other applications that might come in. I mean, voice enabled applications. You could have voice enabled interfaces which more people are comfortable rather than keypads. That's another use case. But then for that to happen, you got to have those price points and the energy efficiency, from the chipsets and the hardware architectures around it. So those are the two, and then at the trading level, at the cloud level, which you would have to do in this current model of so-called AI stuff, is how do we get more energy efficiency, right? And to get energy efficiency, also it's a multi-domain problem. And from mechanical to electronics and software, all the three have to come together. And then at a longer timeline, a lot of our missions in India tend to be short-sighted. We start a semiconductor mission and expect stuff to happen in the next 2 years, and it took 25 years for TSMC to go where it was, right? And so these are all long plays, and all of us, including the government, has to factor that in and look at a 10-15 year roadmap before you actually get somewhere.
So I think, Jollydeep, let me come to you, that to be able to diffuse AI across the country. I think a lot of innovation is required. Innovation will not necessarily come from large corporations. It will not necessarily come from government. It come from startups. How are you enabling startups to leverage your infrastructure that you're building?
As rightly mentioned, I mean, for us, affordability for startups is one very important factor, right? If I'm able to give infrastructure which is affordable, but if you look at the way these hyperscaler giants are throwing credits away, and then after 2 years they realize that they don't have deep pockets enough to pay those bills, and that's the time when players like NxtGen come into the minds of these startups. So I think it's important that we have a mind shift of what is the inception cost that you are incurring. Right now it looks free, but later on it might not serve your purpose as you would want to justify the cost to your investors in terms of how you're presenting the end product to the consumer. So when you reach that stage of Series B or C funding, at that point in time, the startups start looking at cutting costs and becoming much more efficient. The need, I think, is that we're able to influence these startups that you should look at more of these Indian players who are able to give you the same kind of efficiency, same kind of performance levels at much better cost. And when you look at it from long term point of view, it will become efficient in terms of even starting to spend when they spend. Of course, we also have to play a role in terms of ensuring that there's an ecosystem which can grow much more harmoniously in this entire aspect. But if it's free, then you're the product. That's the underlying principle. So of course, investments have to be made. What we do more is one. When we went in for the India AI mission bid, we wanted to make sure that we are doing something that will really make an effect to what is happening. We're very proud that we were able to lower the cost by about 40%, which was a global benchmark. I think that initiative that the government took really shook the world in terms of how Indians are looking at playing a part in this AI ecosystem play. One more important thing is that we have to understand that all, as whatever roles we perform, we have something to do very individually to contribute to making it happen. For us as an industry, it's very important that we are building this infrastructure with such kind of efficiency at costs that are acceptable to the startups who are going to innovate and scale these applications that they build, and government to play a role of an enabler, build policies and bring that infrastructure to such a level. I mean, if you have shared public infrastructure which everybody can use, the affordability becomes much more accessible, right? So that I think is what we need to do.
So, one breakthrough innovation that you think will put India on the global map.
Um, I believe that I mean we should not run into a race of doing what the Western world is doing. We have an opportunity to play it right. If I mean, with as you earlier mentioned, right, like with cases like UPI Aadhaar, we've shown the world that we can do such population scale use cases. What we need to do is that what AI is here, we have immense talent. Talent is not a constraint in India. Of course, there are barriers where you have language barriers, but I think that can be broken very easily with what we are using technology for. It's important that we're doing it right, we are doing it the sovereign way, which will lead us there. So, there is where we can become the most. India is at a very critical, very important juncture. We are, very neutral. We are not in the, the flurry of the power struggle which is there in the AI block. So we can become a trusted AI nation. So we have three major advantages. We have mass population. We have about 1.4 billion people here with us. The kind of use cases, I mean, all the panels before spoken about those use cases, the amount of use cases we have, the amount of population where we have it can train models and do all of this right will take us to the top position And I think our Minister, Mr. Ashwini Vaishnav, also mentioned you're wrongly placing us in the second group. We are in the first group. So I think that's.
Parag, your prediction on the one breakthrough innovation?
One, I think it's difficult to pinpoint one, but I think energy efficiency and the cost, right? That's one. To me, I think the aim is to get a dollar AI. So, and that's what enabled, the feature phones and all the telecom revolution actually was on the back of on the back of these cheap devices available to 1 billion people. So I think that trajectory has been taken, but it was not taken by Indian hardware manufacturers. But now it's time that we own up that part. So if we own that part up, I think we will probably be fairly dominant player. And I agree with that. We don't have to get into a arms race with anybody, right? We have our own unique problems and we solve them, and we are a continent by ourselves, so we don't have to worry about that.
So Gokul, last word to you. You working with a bunch of startups. Any interesting innovations that you are seeing that can potentially have a breakthrough impact?
That's not fair. We have a lot of them doing some fantastic work that we are learning from. So startups are a good environment to learn for big companies. So it's a great opportunity to actually be part of that thriving environment. And we want to continue.
Or any challenges you want to throw to the startup?
I would just simply say, focus on heterogeneous, scalable, affordable compute. Start with that, and if you can, it could be AI today, it could be something other way of addressing AI, which is being talked about also. And if you start with heterogeneous, scalable, affordable compute, then you're not bottlenecked by the compute, you're bottlenecked by the application.
I think, I need to sit next to Gokul. I think gives me ideas. So.
That was the idea of investigation.
So actually, one of the things that people don't miss, people often miss, I think, both NVIDIA and Intel are more software companies than hardware companies, right? The layer in between, the AI DevOps that lowers these models into heterogeneous hardware environments is the key, I think. And if you can own that, and that as a challenge, that would be a great thing, because then you get diversity. You don't get locked into one particular architecture. So then what happens is you have the ability to onboard any new architecture, new hardware architecture at probably a few weeks. I mean, the challenge today is once you get a lock-in, it's very difficult to move away from it. The kind of software resources that you have to throw to be able to get it at scale becomes a challenge. And that, I think, in the entire industry, it's not being addressed because deliberately it's not being addressed, because then the lock-in helps a few bunch of.
I'm sure.
Sorry, go ahead.
Gokul has a perspective.
No. I just want to give a plug-in. Since you are startups, there's some really fantastic demos that people have lined up. I know it's raining outside. Request people to go check it out. There are a lot of good startups there as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think some of them are going to present now, so I think we'll wrap up this panel and look forward to the presentations. Thank you, Parag, Gokul.